Abraham Lincoln is a lawyer, politician, and former American president. His name was associated with the American Civil War and the abolition of slavery in his country in 1863. He is the first representative from the state of Illinois to reach the presidency, and he is considered the most respected president in American history. And his positions and decisions were an inspiring model for many American politicians. His true religion remained an undetectable mystery. Abraham Thomas Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809 in Hardin County, Kentucky, in the eastern United States, to a modest family. As his father, Thomas, was a carpenter, according to Jewish accounts, his family name Lincoln is the name of the British town from which his Jewish ancestors immigrated. While researchers, including the Moroccan Dr. Ali bin al-Muntasir al-Qahtani and the American researcher Braun Kennedy, believe that Lincoln's family is from the Melungeon people, who are believed to have their origins back to Muslims who migrated from Andalusia to escape the persecution of the Inquisition. Lincoln received a limited school education, but he was an intellectual conversant with various knowledge through his extensive reading of major Western books. In his 20s, he studied law with the encouragement of a member of the Legislative Council in his region, but he did not obtain a university qualification. In the early stages of his life, Lincoln practiced several modest jobs, including that he worked as a waiter in a bar. Then he worked in trade and maritime transportation of goods after he moved in 1831 to the village of New Salem in Sangamon County. But his business quickly faltered and he lost. In 1832, he was elected commander of the Illinois militia during the short Black Hawk War with the Native Americans. He then practiced the legal profession after studying law independently and obtaining a license to practice it in 1836. Through it, his reputation spread, and he dispensed with his work in it. Lincoln began his political career with his candidacy in 1832 for membership in the Illinois General Assembly for the Whig Party, which later transformed into the Republican Party and became the most prominent party in the country alongside the Democratic Party. He represented Sangamon County in the Illinois House of Representatives in the sessions of 1836, 1838, and 1840. And in 1856, he joined the Republican Party at its founding and became one of its candidates for the Senate in 1858. In 1860, Lincoln ran for the presidency on behalf of his party in that year's elections, won, and became the 16th American president. His success aroused the residents of the southern states in support of the continuation of slavery in the country. These were 11 states that announced, following his victory in the presidency, their secession from the federal government, forming an independent state and issuing its own constitution. In his speech, which he delivered on the occasion of his inauguration as president on March 4, 1861, Lincoln declared his rejection of the secession of the southern states and their constitution, which he considered invalid, and affirmed his determination to keep the American states united as they were. When the Southerners ignored his call, on April 12, 1861, the Civil War broke out between the North and the South, which lasted until May 1865. On September 22, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln issued his proclamation declaring the initial emancipation of slaves as of January 1, 1863. The following year, he won the presidential race again, winning the position for a second term, but it was not completed. Lincoln's name was associated in the minds of Americans with the achievement of 3 major national achievements during his rule, despite the difficulties he faced from his political opponents within the House of Representatives. These achievements were the Civil War, in which he restored the secessionist states to central rule by force of arms, and the 13th Constitutional Amendment requiring the emancipation of slaves and the prohibition of slavery in the country. The third achievement was the unification of the banking system, which was dominated by the Jewish Rothschild family. It played a major role in supporting the Civil War, so that its control over the movement of the economy continued, and its control over the financial system, which allowed for multiple currencies, increased. To the American people, in which he said, "The financial powers in the state prey for the people in times of peace and conspire against them in times of adversity. This is more tyrannical than monarchy, more arrogant than absolute rule, and more selfish than bureaucracy.
Lincoln added, "I see in the near future a crisis coming that provokes me and makes me tremble in fear for the safety of the nation. Corporations have been crowned, and this will be followed by an era of corruption in which the financial powers seek to prolong their existence at the expense of the interest of the people, until wealth accumulates in the hands of some, and the people perish."
Although many have accused Lincoln of sometimes belittling Lincoln's personality and turning him into a mere national cultural stereotype, he is considered the most revered president in American history. Many describe him as a champion of justice and freedom, who was able to deal with the exceptional political circumstances he faced, while maintaining governance and moving the country forward during the most difficult periods of its history.
Lincoln was the first American president to demand women's participation in electoral voting.
The first American president to allow rabbis to work in the army as clergy.
And he also appointed for the first time a Jew as consul in the State Department.
During his reign, black men were accepted into the American Armed Forces
and the establishment of the American Intelligence Service and the inauguration of the National Cemetery in Gettysburg are due to him.
Lincoln's religion remained a subject of great controversy, as did his level of religiosity.
Some of them say that he was a Christian,
and some of them affirmed his Jewishness, while others said that he was a Muslim who concealed his faith. They cite that some of his sermons included verses from the Holy Quran, which he read through the copy of the Quran belonging to American President Thomas Jefferson, and some of his decisions that were consistent with the teachings of the Quran.
Islam. Even those who say that he was a Christian assert that he was not as religious as his Christian parents, who prayed in the Baptist church. He had never visited a church since his early youth, let alone a Jewish synagogue, and he had his own perceptions about the Creator that had nothing to do with the Bible or the Torah. He remained hesitant between doubting the existence of God and the existence of divine providence that manages the affairs of life and human beings. He was also accused of being very critical of the gospel.
As for Lincoln's Jewishness, it has been repeatedly talked about by historians, writers, and journalists because of the available Jewish information
about his relationship with Jews and Judaism, and because he was not an ordinary president for American Jews, as he was loved by their community, most of which believed that his ancestors were Jews.
Abraham Lincoln was shot in the head on April 14, 1865, while watching American Cousin at Ford's Theater,
and then died the next day, he and his wife. At the beginning of his second presidential term, he was the first American president to be assassinated in history.
Several sources indicate that his killer, John Wilkes Booth, was a Jew, and that his assassination was instigated by a Jewish financial group in retaliation for Lincoln's actions against its banks. Lincoln's grave in Springfield was robbed several times, leading to his body being moved 17 times and his coffin opened 5 times. In 1876, thieves tried to steal his body and demanded a ransom of $200,000. And in 1890, they took a sword that was attached to a statue of a soldier above his grave. In 2011, he was robbed by an unknown person and was subjected to desecration operations, one of which was in 1987 when racist graffiti was found on him.